Hi, my name is Diego. I'm a second-year Chem grad student. Thank you for all the information you've given us here. I had a question. I was very surprised coming into graduate school to learn that the peer review process is not double-blind, i.e. you know whose paper you are reviewing. Human nature being what it is, and the emphasis on double-blindedness that is given to, say, health studies and things. I was just really surprised to learn about that, and I was wondering if anyone could comment on that, and if that's something that's ever been proposed or discussed, or why people do or do not worry about it.
Yeah, that's a very good idea, and it has been tried multiple times over the years, and there have been papers published summarizing what the results were. And sometimes those papers say, yes, if you took away this Nobel laureate's name from the authorship, the manuscript got terrible reviews, and if you put it on, it got wonderful reviews. And I think that actually there is an element of reality there. And so the way that I counterbalance it is I do what editors are supposed to do and make a judgment. And we do publish work by Nobel laureates, I see what the reviews smell like, and if you've read 10 to the 7th reviews, you're in pretty good shape to discount the Nobel laureate kind of review versus the science kind of review. Yeah, it certainly makes a difference, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting idea, and I'd like to take that back. On the other hand, there's reasons we may need to communicate with the author, and that probably could be built into a system so it was still kept blind. But interesting idea. Thank you.
I have a couple of comments. We are requested to include qualified reviewers when we submit a paper.
You're requested to include.
Pardon me?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
I didn't. Oh, I'm questioning the practice of including reviewers, qualified reviewers, when I submit a paper. That helps the associate editor, but many times you will include friends that will not be so critical. That's one question.
Okay.
The other question I have, I have been reviewing papers for many years, and we have many foreign authors that have problems with the language.
Right.
They sometimes even hire translators who are not scientists. And so we have, as a reviewer, we have a difficult time with the communication.
Right.
Those are two problems that I have encountered in all my experience.
Okay. Does the panel want to address those first?
Well, I think the first one is about suggested reviewers, and that's what they are, is suggested. So we ask all of our authors to submit a list of 4 potential reviewers. I think Claude actually dealt with that somewhat before, that these should be people who are truly, from the author's viewpoint, unbiased authorities in the field that can help. We're not obligated to take any of those suggestions as editors. In fact, we generally make at least in our case, make a practice of, if we use the author's suggested reviewers, we also include at least one who we suggest. So it's kind of balanced to avoid that problem, which you can never get rid of, that the person might have chosen reviewers who are already friendly to the manuscript, maybe not objective. So we appreciate it, we require the names, but we're not obligated to use them.
Thanks, Sam, but I agree. I think, again, you know, this is why it'll be a while before they can replace us with computers, because there's a certain amount of human judgment involved. Often when I look down the suggested list of reviewers from the author's cover letter, I agree with it. I say, yes, they've picked a set of people that I might have picked independently if I'd remembered all the names, and this is a good set. Of course, I'm going to suggest one or two of my own that weren't in that set, but I after a while, you know a large number of people out in the world, and you're calibrated on their reviewing habits. I think it's important for the author to suggest some reviewers. It's not, in our case, it isn't required, but it helps me to understand the audience that they think they're writing for. And that often helps me understand what needs to be revised about the manuscript in order for them to reach that audience. And don't worry, the one thing software is already caught up with is that it knows the difference between a reviewer suggested by the author and a reviewer suggested by the editor. There's a little green flag up there for the ones the author suggested. So another thing I would add is I'm not looking at that list of suggestions so I can decide not to invite any of them, because that's not what it's all about. But if I do see the 3 buddies from graduate school listed, then I probably will not use any of them. And we have to trust me for being able to discern the difference.
Can I address the question about English? So we do recognize that many of the submissions to ACS journals, and actually 2/3 of articles originate from labs that are outside the U.S. So the question of English language is an important one. What we're asking for from you as a reviewer is really your scientific judgment. We don't want you to spend time on copy editing, if you will. There are other ways of doing that. One of the other ways of doing that is we have some recommended language services that authors can send their manuscripts to have the English polished so that it's readable to a wide variety of scientific experts. So I might be small comfort, but it's one way that we're addressing it.
Is there a question here?
My name is Rita. I'm a grad student in chemistry. I don't know how often this happens, but if authors can say people that they think are competitors who they don't want reviewing. I know we looked at a paper recently in our lab where we were kind of surprised. What if the people that they say are their competitors are the experts in that field and might find a problem with the data, with the way that they've evaluated their data, that someone else might not realize is there?
It's a very good question, and it's one that we deal with frequently. And again, if you've read 10 to the 7th reviews, you get a pretty good idea of the relationship, if any, between the reviewer and the author. Authors are welcome, and in fact, I think it's in the instructions that if you prefer that it not be sent to some limited number of labs, then you're invited to say that. If you think, well, Sally over there is breathing down our neck and we got to get this out the door before she publishes, that's completely understandable and completely legitimate, and you can ask that Sally not be used as a reviewer. On the other hand, there is an art to finding the range of a reviewer. You don't want somebody who knows too much. You don't want somebody who really is in a neck-and-neck competition because, yeah, they know everything, but they're going to interpret it all negatively. They're going to find something that, I'll bet the elevator was running when they took this NMR, and that peak is really a doubling. And so you have to move sort of an arm's length away from the particular work to get someone who knows the area, who's up with the literature, but who is not down there scratching and clawing to get ahead of it. And that's, again, that's why they pay us all that money, is to make that judgment and find those people, which in some cases is not easy.
Yep.
It seems to be a widely utilized practice that when a professor is asked to review a paper, they will share it with their lab, give it to their grad students, that sort of thing. Is that an officially sanctioned thing by ACS? I mean, they sign a confidentiality agreement, which I have not seen, but it explicitly states, I assume, that they won't share it with anybody. But it is heavily utilized, and I think this is widely known within the scientific community. Could you guys comment on that, too?
Yes, it's a very widespread practice in chemistry departments, and again, having read 10 to the 7th reviews, I know when it's happening and when it isn't, and it's up to me to decide. We also have a little button on the web that says delete, and if I get a review that's utterly useless, and one of the kinds is real beginners at reviewing just think they're supposed to find something wrong with work, and they find something that's trivial and they make a big noise about it, I may think, well, no, they missed the point here. But yes, and I think, and Sarah can speak to this, I think in fact, and I've seen it happen in the past, when the principal investigator asks, for example, a postdoc to review a manuscript, they will tell me, they'll send me an email and say, I've asked this senior postdoc to review this manuscript because it's more in her immediate area than in mine, and I'm busy flying on airplanes. And so I've been told, even if the click-through on the confidentiality business hasn't been dealt with in any other way. So yeah, it happens, and it's, you're not going to hide it. You can run, but you can't hide it. And the fingerprints are there.
Yeah, I'll echo what Claude just said, that it's frequent that you get notification that someone has helped with this review. And I think from a young scientist perspective too, it's how you learn how to write a review as well, as being mentored by your PI, so that there is a valuable service too in training the future scientists to be able to write independent reviews.
But ACS does not require those people to then sign a confidentiality agreement.
You know, our editors are bound by our ethical guidelines. They're not under contract with us, so in some ways it's a gentleman's handshake that we say, here are ethical guidelines, we are hopeful that you're complying with those.
In my own case, I appreciate being told by the PI what I would have figured out anyway, but it's more honorable if the PI tells me. But I don't think there's any paperwork. If there is an email tracker built into all the software, so that message is permanently associated with that manuscript. There are also ways I can make notes about reviews, like Professor X didn't review this or something like that. And so that's where the human element of all this comes in. It's not so easy to code this into something.
We try to get multiple reviews in on each manuscript, and our aim is 3 or more. So if one is out of line, that helps to spot the out of line review as well. But oftentimes what we get are superficial reviews. As Claude mentioned, they don't really get to the substance of the paper, and they corrected a few misspellings and sent it back in. Those don't really do us any good at all. I'd rather not have them. And if somebody does that, then I may have to go out and get another reviewer if too many of those. So those are...
And it takes an extra month.
Yeah, it takes more time.